historians here may know, I actually broke John Adams' record of casting the most tie-breaking votes in a single term. How about that? I cannot wait to cast the deciding vote to break the filibuster on voting rights and reproductive rights. I cannot wait.
Ever cackling, always about her. Unfortunately, most Americans aren't laughing along with her. Kamala Harris was speaking at a DNC event this past weekend where she bragged about ramming through laws that don't have broad support and doing so in record-breaking fashion, also setting her sights on destroying the rights of the minority, the filibuster. Joining me now to weigh in is the president of the National Right to Work Committee, Mark Mix. Also with us, presidential historian, Reagan biographer, author of April 1945, Mr. Craig Shirley. Mark, we begin with you. One piece of legislation that will definitely be impacted should the filibuster be removed is the fight for right to work laws. Senator Elizabeth Warren, a woman who lied infamously about being Native American to claim minority status, appears to want to force all Americans into a union so that the dues, I'm assuming, the dues can be collected and the Democrat campaigns can be funded. Either way, this is pretty dangerous, no?
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. We call it the Share Our Pain bill because the right to work states, the 27 states that allow workers to choose voluntarily whether or not to support a labor union, are much more productive and have much more growth than states that allow forced unionism where union officials have dramatic powers. And so what Elizabeth Warren and her colleagues in the Senate, some of her colleagues, want to do is repeal the right for states to have right to work laws, to go back to the federal law passed in the 1930s under the Roosevelt administration that imposes forced unionism across the entire nation and takes away the right of states to pass right to work laws. And so going back to these federal directives. So, right to work states have grown double in the private sector job growth over the last decade. We passed 5 new right to work laws. They're angry about that. They're angry about the loss of revenue. And so they're going to do something about it. They're going to force all American workers to pay dues or fees in order to work. That's their goal.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I think you're right to name it the forced pain because, the Democrats, when they're miserable, they want everybody else to be just equally miserable with them. Speaking of the American worker, Craig, today's CPI numbers showed an 8.3% increase in inflation, well above what economic analysts were expecting. Biden called today's data, quote, more progress, but that progress is doing immense damage to all of we the people, no?
Yes, it is. I'm sure that's his goal. His goal has to be a flattening of American society, creating a sameness among all of us. So his goal is to. I think now it's clear to all of us. His goal is the opposite of growth in the American economy. His goal is the reduction of the American economy and making us all kind of miserable and same and without competition, without health, he wants a miserable society. We've read many textbooks over the years. We've read many novels, 1984, Brave New World, other books, and he has too. And don't forget, too, is that, of course, he's taking the advice of some really stupid historians. I won't name names, but one of the first people he met with when he was president were historians, left-wing historians, who know nothing about governance or American economy, who told him that to be a great president, he had to go big like FDR. And, of course, for a Democrat to go big is just to spend a lot of money, which is all he's done as president. He always just spent all this money and created a large deficit, which has just created inflation out of control. And only to a liberal would they consider that progress. To the rest of us, we look at them like they're morons. But that's. I'm sorry, Sean. I'm sorry. That's what we have today.
Mm-hmm. Well, hey, Mark, I want to get one more question to you, and I want to ask Craig about Ken Starr. States with forced unionization are now losing millions of jobs to right-to-work states, as you already alluded to. I think it was, what was the number you used, 27 right-to-work states out of 23? What's the end game for Democrats? I already mentioned that they want to fund their political campaigns with union dues, but why do they want to force every American to be in a union?
Well, because it makes good political contributions. You know, Roosevelt knew it back in the 1930s. Lyndon Johnson knew it in the 1960s when he tried to repeal right-to-work laws in Section 14B of the Taft-Hartley Act. And, you know, and now Joe Biden is trying to follow that same playbook. There's nothing new. It just repeats under the sun here. And so he needs to have union officials, the top brass of unions, have more money to spend more on politics so they can end the filibuster, so they can take complete control of the Senate, and so they can force American workers back under the yoke of forced unionism that was imposed back in the 1930s. You know, Craig knows more about presidential history than I do, but, you know, they want to blame this all on Ronald Reagan, this idea that American workers believe in freedom and liberty. And, you know, Ronald Reagan was the beginning of the end for the American labor movement. No, union bosses are the beginning of the end, and compulsion and force is the beginning of the end of the American labor movement.
And don't forget where this all leads, Mr. Mix, is that, you know, then all of a sudden you've got government apparatchiks in charge whether or not you can work or not.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of power there. Craig Shirley and Mark Mix. Gentlemen, thank you for the visit. It's always appreciated.